Good morning, gents. Active Aussie here, Saturday morning. It's 10:40 a.m. I came across a video last night by Ohio Dan. I think the title was "The GOP Can't or Won't Save the USA," and I think this also applies to other Western countries like Canada and Australia. I've thought about it myself before. I'm pleased that Trump won the election in the USA, but I think that in the long term, in the long run, it really does not make so much difference in regard to who is elected, no matter if it's like you could say a right-wing sort of government or left-wing. There are always people on both sides with an agenda, certain angles. They have vested interests, and I feel that on a, what you could say, a macro type level in Western countries, it's very hard to turn things around now anyway. Western society is really in decline compared to, say, 30 or 40 years ago. I feel that on a micro political level, just say a state government, provincial government, or for some local councils, if you get like a good independent candidate and they are like genuinely independent, they actually can make a difference and you can get some positive outcomes. But sometimes, as we know, even independents can be duds. Sometimes I feel it's just human nature for people to be greedy, and there will always be corruption around and self-serving type individuals. It makes no difference who gets elected. The thing I really despise the most is how governments have just been throwing away, wasting taxpayers' money. As you know, I'm very against the funding for the war in Ukraine by Western governments. Also, there's money going to Israel as well, and recently Biden gave $1 billion to certain African nations in regard to recent flooding over there, which I find quite appalling, considering there were two major hurricanes in the USA recently, and you saw that catastrophic type damage in Florida and North and South Carolina, Tennessee I think it was. So I can understand why a lot of Americans are becoming very irritated and pissed off in regard to that. And you've got the hundreds of billions of dollars that have gone to Ukraine. I know some people support the funding and the sending of weapons to Ukraine. My elderly mother is one of them, and I've had a few, you could say, little disagreements with her in regard to that, but she's from like a different sort of generation who remembers World War II pretty vividly, I suppose, or the aftermath of World War II, so to speak. But I do feel that in some cases, just like where I am, there is an independent councillor in my area, a woman, and she does a really good job and she keeps getting voted back in. So when some positive outcomes actually occur, it sort of restores your faith in like human nature. But I feel that there are just too many factions involved in politics, and Dan also talked about controlled opposition, which has been around for quite a while now. Another thing recently is that the Australian government under Albanese has allocated $600 million to start up an NRL rugby league club in PNG in Port Moresby, and this has been you could say, portrayed as being a type of soft diplomacy to try and counter China's influence within the South Pacific, which I find very ironic, because Albanese is or appears to be just a lapdog of the CCP, so it's a bit hypocritical. And anyway, even if Australia gave like $10 billion to PNG and other South Pacific type nations, it wouldn't make any difference in regard to countering China's influence. And we need to know where that money is going, where it's ending up, who's accountable for it. As usual, often it ends up in some corrupt official's bank account, and there have been countless examples of that over the years. So I can understand nowadays why a lot of people have just become very jaded, very cynical in regard to many aspects of our Western society. Not sure how you guys feel about that. Leave a few comments. I always appreciate it. The forest is looking really beautiful at the moment. It's very green because we've had quite a few storms and heavy rainfall, and this is the time of year that I really enjoy, even though it gets very hot sometimes. But today it's only about 25 Celsius, so it's very pleasant walking around here. I'm just going to go for about a kilometre walk up that way and then turn around, go back to the car and go home for a while. Anyway, gents, that's all for now. Thanks for listening and viewing as usual. I'll talk to you again soon, hopefully.